What a start. Hey, team.
Hey, I do the intro here. I introduce you.
Well, it's just exceptional B-roll.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, everyone. We're back for another Rituals podcast. My guest today is going to be Luke Howard. Luke Howard is a professional MMA fighter. He's a Judo Black Belt, 5-time Judo national champion from Australia. Seven.
Good start.
Brown Belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, international Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion, and has had boxing and kickboxing fights, and is the creator of Day One Martial Arts.
That is correct.
Welcome.
Yeah. It was almost a perfect introduction.
We don't want it to be too perfect, right? Got to play down the skills a little bit.
Yeah, that's right.
I wanted to start with judo. Let's talk a little bit about judo and how did you how did you get started with it, and talk about your journey with that a little bit.
Yeah, okay, how did I get started with judo? I actually wanted to do karate when I was a kid, and I'm so thankful to my parents that I never did that. Basically, I went along because my brother did it, and I just wanted to do what my big brother did, and got into it that way, just followed him along, started training, and I think it got to about, I was 12, and I had to make a decision between playing basketball and trying out for like the junior state team for judo, and the decision I made was judo, and I went to my first national championships and had success there and won a gold medal, and then from there it was pretty well just all judo from 13 until 20.
Right.
It just consumed my life, and yeah, I was quite a big human for a child, so I was always like excelling my training and training with the, when I was 13 I was training with people that were 16, 17. When I was 15 I was competing in under 16s, under 20s and the men's divisions, and training with the men because they were the only people that I could get that were kind of my size. So yeah, it was just a blank.
So, okay, talk a little bit about like judo as a sport in Australia. Is it like, because I'll give you an example, like us growing, when I grew up as a kid, judo was already like a really big sport in America. So was that the same in Australia growing up? Was it
not
really common?
No, judo wasn't very common, I would say. Although it's like, I would say that like in the city I grew up in, there might have been, I'm going to say like 12 to 15, like judo gyms, and I guess like as a kid I'm like, oh, that's a lot, and now like being involved in like jiu-jitsu, it's like I could probably find 15 jiu-jitsu clubs in like a 1k radius in some cities in Australia, so like by comparison I wouldn't say it's as big, but the clubs that do it are like very dedicated to it, and it's like a very regular roster of people that are in there.
So how would you say like judo as a scene overall in Australia is today, like, or is, because now jiu-jitsu is such a big thing, you feel like there's less judo schools?
I think there's probably like potentially less like pure judo schools, but there's more crossover. So there's like a lot of like jiu-jitsu clubs that will have a judo coach as well, and people are more willing. What I see now is people are more willing to cross train. So we see a lot of judoka that are going to jiu-jitsu to, get more time in on the ground. And then we're now seeing like jiu-jitsu guys come to a judo club and, be dummies for an hour and a half as they try and learn how to do a takedown.
Right. The joke is because I always ask like Luke to come into my academy and like share his judo, and I think that's like something like, look, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy first. I've done judo on and off for a long time. I've done more wrestling than anything. Like, I'm more confident teaching my wrestling and stuff, and but I have access to somebody like Luke who has a very like, I recognize the skills right away, right? Like, so when I see somebody come in that's like has a high skill set that's going to benefit my team in a way that I can't, I need to take advantage of that. You know what I mean? So taking a high-level judo player and having them come into my school and show judo, I will never be able to replicate that. I invested all my time in jiu-jitsu, so I need to find other resources, other people that can help elevate my team, and we need to do that by working together.
Yeah.
So that's a prime example right there. It's like, I rather have Luke come in and throw me around in my own gym and teach my guys how to have better judo than I have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's a really good asset because once I made like the transition to jiu-jitsu and less out of judo, it gave me the anticipation of where every match was going to start.
Right.
Because I was so confident on my feet that I knew that no one else that I was going to compete with, especially at like blue belt, purple belt, even brown belt now, it's like I know that that person is not going to try and take me down, or they may try and take me down, but it's not going to work. So it's like I know the start of the match is going to start with me throwing someone or them pulling guard. So from the word go that match begins, I know I'm going to start in a passing position. So that is predominantly where like a lot of my training consists of. It's like I can like minimize, or not minimize, I can limit the amount of like options for play from the start of the match, so I can be more focused on the direction that I'm going.
Right. Like what it really is it's control, right?
Yeah.
Like you have control of the match from the start.
Less variables.
Yeah, less variables. Because like basically for you, you're probably never going to pull guard.
No, I actually don't. Someone asked me the other day, and I'm like, I'm not the person to ask.
Yeah, it's
I'm
just
like,
like not even in your skills.
they're like, how do you pull guard? And I'm like, you grab hold of this lapel, you pull. That's Cianagi. No.
Yeah. And again, like something about I always really took away a lot from judo when I was practicing judo, especially like when I was purple belt. It was probably like the most time I was ever like immersed in judo myself, and it wasn't even that much. I was maybe like once or twice a week. I go to a gym called Cahill's in San Bruno. It was in California, but it was like this Olympic judo school.
Yeah.
And one of the things I really took away was just their approach to grip fighting. You know what I mean?
It's massive.
It's such a big part of grappling with a gi. You know what I mean? I mean, I guess this is really what this is going to come down to. It's like grappling with the gi.
Exactly. Well, they're two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
They both came from the same lineage.
Yeah, it's true.
We like to pretend that they're two different things, but they're the same thing, but from the other side.
Yeah.
It's like judo's, I would say, is a 70-30 split standing up to groundwork, and jiu-jitsu is probably less than 30% standing, but like majority groundwork, and then there's a small application of like how to get the person to the floor. So it's like they are the same thing. It's just they went, as they split off, they just got where the details or the areas that they focused on were just two different parts. They branched off from the same thing.
Yeah.
But we're just like, we're going to expand on these two different areas.
Yeah. And it reflects that. And like a lot of that is rule set also, right? Because like any sport is going to be kind of like, you'll see where it grows based off the rule set. Because every year world championships, whether you're watching judo or you're watching jiu-jitsu, there's trends, right? And this is something like top level competitors do, is they watch the trends in the sport, you know? Yep. And year after year, the trend in jiu-jitsu is the same. Mm-hmm. I walk out, we shake hands, and I'm going to grab you and sit to my butt as fast as I can, you know? And it's like, this is also what kind of like splits jiu-jitsu as a sport.
Do you know what the best part about that is? When if you know someone's just going to sit to their butt, all I have to do is put my foot like this and touch their ankle on the way down, and I get 2 points.
Yeah, it's great, huh?
You know?
Or grab the pants, right?
Yeah, just make an attempt.
Yeah, and it's like, but it's kind of weird because it like doesn't allow typical jiu-jitsu athletes to like build a takedown game for themselves, you know? And it kind of almost robs them of like kind of the beauty of what the martial art could be, you know?
Yeah.
Did you ever watch like really early sports jiu-jitsu, like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the 90s?
No, I mean, I was born in 92. I had no idea what jiu-jitsu was until probably 2014.
Right.
If I'm honest.
So like this is where I'm a little lucky too, like being from California, because like all my coaches were basically competing in early jiu-jitsu in California and Brazil. So they had like, there was a company back in the day called OTM. It's on the mat, and they would do video highlights and stuff like that. This is like,
did it come on a VHS?
Pretty much,
oh,
you know,
shit.
Just to give perspective too, like we didn't have YouTube. There was no YouTube, you know? So like you basically had to go out and find your own resources, you know? But like you watch the really old school guys, a lot of them had judo backgrounds, you know? And like that's where a lot of the jiu-jitsu, like it was before it kind of really started to get more refined. Like the only time the action would stop is when someone got into half guard. Because no one knew how to pass half guard yet. Like,
well, it's still a hard position. It's an easy position to get stuck in.
For sure.
Yeah.
There's definitely like, but now there's routes. There's like knowledge to escape. Like you got to think like Gordo is still just starting to develop what half guard was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there was like the same three fundamental sweeps that are in all of half guard were still being developed. You know what I mean? So outside of that, it was action. They would watch a lot of stand up on the feet. Actually, one of my favorite fighters from that generation was named Margarita, And Margarita had fantastic takedowns, man. You ever watch Margarita go? He's fantastic on his feet. I'm going to send you some highlights of him. He's really someone you should look into. Okay. And like, you know, we saw other guys later on. Jacare Souza had great judo. Claudio Calisons, also national level judoka from Brazil.
Yep.
And
it was a
Flavio
really,
Canto.
Yeah, I was just about to bring him up.
Let's talk about him.
I don't know that much about him. No, it's like he was the first. He was like probably the first. I'm really not sure whether he started with judo or jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
It could have been one or the other because judo is actually massive in Brazil.
Yeah.
There's a lot of judo in Brazil, and because that's like what lineage you start in Japan, and then you go to Brazil, and that's where we had Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu born, but they still bring judo there along with them. So
yeah,
it's kind of like that was that offset thing. But yeah, Flavio Canto was just really well known like on the world circuit for judo, and basically all he would do, he would use specific throws without the intention of trying to throw for ippon, which would be a winning score in judo if you've never seen it, which is where you throw someone flat on their back. He would use his throws as setups just to get into arm bars.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Actually, like, again, we're talking about Flavio Canto. If you guys have never seen Flavio Canto fight before, watch his matches with Travis Stevens, because those are some of like the best matches I've ever seen of like hybrid grappling, kind of where we're going to see wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and judo all fused together. And they're in the Olympics, so they're judo matches, so it's judo rule set. But it's like just showing how beautiful the sports can be when they really come together.
Well, that's where we go less away from talking about like judo or jiu-jitsu or wrestling and just talking about grappling.
Yes.
Because it's just like you can say, because it's like you want to be the best grappler, which means that you need to understand more than just one thing. It's like you can't just be the best at sitting on your butt and locking up guards, and you might be an absolute wizard off your back, but if you don't know how to take someone down, then you're still at a disadvantage with a really good grappler who has a better base knowledge like across the board. Absolutely. Like someone that can wrestle, someone that can throw, someone that can grip fight, and then they can play guard, and they can sweep, and they submit.
Absolutely. I think that's like a rude awakening sometimes for some jiu-jitsu athletes. Like if they're real kind of purists in their mindset, they think it's like, oh, Brazilian jiu-jitsu is just not enough. You know what I mean? and like, this is something I had to learn early on too. I'm like, oh, if I want to be like a well-rounded grappler, I need to work on these other things too. And we see it kind of time and time again where people come in with a kind of the purist mindset, and all they want to do is work on jiu-jitsu as for what it is. But man, what made jiu-jitsu what it was this idea of incorporating things from other martial arts. You look at guys like Holz Gracie. Holz is like famous for innovating new techniques into the system, right? And having that open mind and being like, what else can we bring to the table here?
Well, you've even got a split within jiu-jitsu, because there's, I guess, like traditional jiu-jitsu, how it started, which is it was developed as a method of self-defense, and then you've got sports jiu-jitsu. So it's just like, one was, right, if someone's trying to hurt me, this is the quickest way to kill them. Right. And then the other gave us worm guard. That's a very clear difference.
Right.
You know, it's like, I'm not getting into a street fight, grabbing that person's tie and wrapping it around their leg as I follow them around. You know, like
I'd like to see that though. But yeah, like I don't want to talk about like I hate sports jiu-jitsu, because I really do appreciate it.
I love it. I enjoy it. It's really fun.
But I'd love to see more, like, incorporating more on its feet, you know? It's like, that's where it's like, I would love to see more embrace between, like, the judo community and the jiu-jitsu community, because what they can make together would be, like, really fantastic, you know?
Well, it's usually, like, the biggest question you get asked when it's, like, someone's new to jiu-jitsu, and you bring them in, and then say their first lesson we're doing guard. There's, like, close guard. Even that. There's got to be some context behind for that person to understand and get locked in. Where it was like, but how did I end up in this position? Yeah. And it would have started on the feet, which means there has to be a place for takedowns, and whether it's judo or wrestling or anything within jiu-jitsu, because it provides the context for why you're on the floor in the first place. Right. Like, you don't get into a fight with someone from a self-defense aspect and you both just sit down. You're like, you know what? Let's sit down.
Let's sit down and settle our differences.
Boys, take a knee. You know, like, I know how we can fix this.
Right? You know? Yeah, and it's so funny. I mean, like, you can look to, especially like on social media, there's just so much of teasing that side of sports jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? It's just this like...
man, there's nothing wrong with team butt scoot.
Yeah.
My dog's a part of it.
100%, you know? And like, man, but it's what they need to do to play at the highest level a lot of the time, you know? Like, especially the lighter weight people, you know, they have to get in that habit of like sitting.
It becomes like mitigating risks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's literally exactly what we just talked about earlier with the grip fighting on our feet and being able to dictate always where the match is going to go. Like with you, it's not a question if you're going to be on top or not. It's just how you're going to get there.
Yeah. And so it's like what's going to be the starting point? It's like, what position are we going to be in while I'm on top? Am I going to land in a guard where someone awkwardly grabbed a grip, or am I going to manage to throw past everything and land past the hips?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like again on the other side, the guard player is like I just need to get to my butt and have my grips, and I'm gonna be fine. You know,
usually
what I mean?
They're trying to work out what the hell just happened. So.
Did that guy just throw me that quickly?
Yeah. Huh? There's nothing better than the puzzled look of someone staring up at the ceiling, going, "Huh?
How did I get here?"
Yeah, I've done that. I've had that experience myself. It's like the best judo throws are always the ones where you're grip fighting, you're moving around, and all of a sudden you're staring at the ceiling going, the fuck just happened? And then you just hope like hell that someone caught it on video so you can go back and watch what happened.
I know from experience, I was on the receiving end of that once. Like I had a really big match at Purple Belt that had like a lot of hype kind of around it as we were going, and we're like scrambling on the feet, like I'm going for some takedowns and stuff, and the guy just fucking launches me with a huge hip toss, and one of the ones where it makes the whole crowd go wild. You know what I mean? And how unprepared I was just at the reaction of the crowd, it messed with my mindset in the moment. You know what I mean? It was just like. And the throw didn't hurt me. I landed fine, but it was demoralizing in a sense, you know? It's like I didn't want to I didn't keep the same fight going after I got thrown big like that, you know what I mean? It's interesting how it's like it really messes with your head.
I'd love to see the points structure change for takedowns. Cuz you know it's like take a leaf out of wrestling, because it's like any takedown is worth 2 points.
Right.
But it takes significantly more skill to like get under someone's hips and land like a big ogoshi or a big hip throw than it does just to grab someone's ankle and just gently roll them to the floor, and we're like, oh, okay, yeah, 2 points. And it's like they're both the same. It's like I'd like to see like the wrestling, the guys just like 4.
Right.
Like that'd be cool. Where if you're just like, oh, like that would acknowledge and give people more incentive to work on their takedowns. If they know they can score more points with better takedowns.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, from a sports aspect, now we've got something like they're a little bit more incentivized to like, oh, maybe I should learn how to do 1 or 2.
I don't know if they still do an ADCC, but ADCC used to do a penalty for pulling guard. You get a negative.
Yeah.
So you can go to guard, but you just start off at a deficit, you know? And I kind of like that. I think that's good. ADCC rules are kind of weird because there's like the no time limit thing at the start where there's no points and stuff like that.
Was it 5 minutes for no points?
Yeah, I honestly, I'm not as on top of it as I used to be.
I'm guessing.
Someone tell us.
Yeah.
Help
put
internet.
Put it in the comments.
Yeah. And, but yeah, like, I think again, just like more clear rules, something that you're right, to incentivize people to stand up more and like incorporate more takedowns. Cause it's like, as much as I love jiu-jitsu as a sport, like I need to have faith in what I'm doing as well as also like mirroring or reflecting itself still as a martial art.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Cause it's like,
I think that's in front of my face.
It's fantastic to have these great submission skills. So it's like, I know if I can get you down, I'm fine. I don't have to worry about it with whoever it is or whatever's going on.
Sorry.
It's okay. Someone's trying to break into the podcast studio.
Cat's trying to crawl in. I'm like, oh man.
It's Bali. You never know what kind of animals are going to try to get in here, you know?
It's definitely not a kangaroo.
Man, I don't remember what I was saying now. We were talking about...
Llamas.
Just full stop. Having submission skills on the ground, right? But then, like, not being able to get there, that's like a frightening feeling almost, you know what I mean? Like, especially if you've ever done, like, an MMA round and you can't take the person down and, like, you're relying on your jiu-jitsu is, like, the thing that's going to save you.
Oh, that's got to be one of the most demoralizing things for like, an MMA match or MMA sparring. If you bank yourself as a grappler and a wrestler and you get it around someone who is just... You swear to God they're covered in baby oil. You're like, I can't put this person down. I can't get them down. And it's like, it just eliminates your entire strength system.
Right.
And you're like, now I got to rely on my B grade. And that does things with your head. Because now you're like, because you want to put the match in a position where it's like, I can do my best work.
Right.
And when someone's just like, nope, then you're like, oh, shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what it does is it takes all the power of what you believe in away from you. You know what I mean? It's like becomes out of reach.
Yeah.
And then you have to rely on what you have left.
Or then you start getting desperate, and that's the problem. Is you just start rather than like, you know, just staying calm, relaxed, and making like confident decisions. You start having that thought process in your head, and you're like, oh, I can't take this person down. I gotta try harder. So then you're just hunting for it when it's not there, and then you end up just making silly mistakes.
Like pulling guard in an MMA fight, right?
Yeah, and getting knocked out. That happened to what's his name? That happened to Gary Tonin just recently.
Did he pull guard in that fight?
I don't know if he pulled guard, but he went for a heel hook in the first minute of the fight and got flattened.
Yeah.
That was hard to watch.
Yeah, it was. And like, you know, and it's hard to watch too for a couple of reasons. Like, cause he's kind of like one of those guys that's carrying like the jiu-jitsu flag right now in MMA. And as a jiu-jitsu guy, you always want to refer to the jiu-jitsu guy in MMA. There's like only a few of them that are at that level. You know what I mean? And they gave him a really hard opponent that's like a brown belt from Ryan Hall. You know what I mean? So it's like that's someone that doesn't have as much fear of like getting caught in the leg locks and has the awareness of the transitions. So it's part of the reason why he got caught, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's like that person. He finally came across someone that not only like they covered their bases, they were good everywhere. It's like they didn't have to be. It's like the thing is with MMA, it's like he doesn't have to be able to compete with Gary Tonin in jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Because there's so many other things that are going to level the playing field. Like it was used to like the saying, it's like when it comes to MMA, you can turn a black belt in jiu-jitsu into a real shit blue belt quite quick with a couple of punches.
Yeah.
Because it's just something else that's in the arsenal that you can use.
Right.
So it's like he didn't have to be better at him than jiu-jitsu. He just had to be just good enough to limit him being good and then do other things.
Right.
Which is where he just landed some very, very vicious ground and pound with Gary still holding onto that ankle.
Absolutely.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was crazy. But, like, you know, also props to Gary Tonin because that's someone you can tell just has, like, full faith and belief in their systems, you know, to, like, go in there and be, like, not afraid.
You 100% do. You've got to have some serious faith in your jiu-jitsu abilities to go into, like, MMA fights and like, go, like, this person can punch, elbow, knee. I don't know, they can't knee the head. No, they can knee the head on the ground in one.
Yeah.
So it's like, jiu-jitsu is not a nice place to be on one championship because you've got punches, elbows, and knees to the head on the floor. Yeah. And to back yourself that much and just run in and be like, I'm just gonna do it anyway.
Right.
Like that's some confidence.
Right, 100%. And it's just like, and then sometimes you come up short. And the interesting thing is how much success we saw Gary Tonin have also in MMA, like leading up to this fight.
Yeah.
So again, now his method has momentum. Yeah. And like again, just like Ryan Hall's another guy where we see has this momentum with the leg locks and stuff like that in MMA and has like great transitions onto the heel hooks and stuff. Paul Harris would be the only other one really for MMA. I think that's like really nailing the leg locks all the time.
I actually haven't tried heel hooks in the MMA gloves. I'm just trying to think whether that's going to make it easy to catch the heel or hinder it. Because there's technically more grip there.
Yeah.
There's more for it to catch on.
There is.
I mean, it is harder also to grip your hands.
I think it depends on what grip you're using and stuff. Because there's a bunch of different grips people are using nowadays to control the heel. And also just like the other thing too is just people's awareness in the heel hook. Because... Yep. Maybe like 5 years ago, people had like no clue what to do.
Oh no!
And
what do you mean 5 years ago? Five days ago for me.
Yeah.
Self-professed white belt on the legs.
Yeah. Once you start to build some awareness in the position and learn how to like heel slip and stuff, I think it starts building a lot more confidence for you. But man, like you said, there's just so much that you have to be prepared for in grappling. You know what I mean? And again, like tying back to grappling and not just jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Because there's the whole... just that whole system of leg attacks that just aren't traditionally taught in schools.
Well, I mean, like, the beautiful part about that, though, is it just means that you're never done.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? And it's like, the moment you get to a point in jiu-jitsu or in grappling and you're just like, you know what? I've learned everything I need to know. I'm good here. It's like you're dead in the water.
Right.
That's just there's always something to show. It's like, and it's like, and you got to be looking for that knowledge. You could be getting great at one system, and then someone new comes in, and they've got an answer. They've got an answer to something that you do that you haven't seen before, and you're like, oh, okay, now I've got a new problem to solve.
Right.
It's like there's always an opportunity to do something more.
Absolutely. And like, here's for me as like a jiu-jitsu coach, right? So like, let's say I have a batch of new guys. I need to think about what kind of fundamentals am I going to give them? You know, and there's just so much to choose from in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I got to look at my guys that are just doing gi. I got to look at my guys just doing no gi. And like, what skills do I want to build for these people so they're prepared for when they compete?
Yeah.
You know, that's what it really comes down to. And like, everyone feels to be in this big hurry to learn everything. You know, so for me, it's like, you're probably go with straight ankle locks for a while. You know what I mean? There's a lot of transitions off straight ankle locks. And I think that's fine for white belts. You know what I mean? Like, you're interested in leg locks, you want to start learning more about them, start with ankle locks just to get a general feel, because ankle locks aren't necessarily the easiest submission to get clean. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to have a good ankle lock where you're really going to like break the ankle, you got to have that. You got to spend a lot of time drilling. You got to get a lot of repetitions in. And because it's not a twisting submission, you know, like I feel it's like there's less chance of like over rotation on the finish where someone's going to get injured. And that's always something I really have to like take into account. But also, what am I giving up to invest time into that with them too? So it's like, let's say I just did all straight leg submissions, right? Like, so like I say, okay, I'm going to teach my guys ankle locks and knee bars. So
Love a good knee bar.
So do I. Yeah, you got a great knee bar. And I got to ask myself, it's like, I'm going to teach them knee bars, but what do I have to give up to teach them knee bars? Do I not teach them arm bars now?
Yeah, it's because there's so many things.
There's so many things, so
It's
I
like,
got something's got to give up.
And that's actually a good point. A good point now is I noticed the biggest difference from judo to jiu-jitsu was the lack of syllabus. So in judo, it's like you start judo, they basically give you a manual, and they're like, right, you are going to learn these throws first. You're going to learn, it's like, and it starts off, it even explains the fundamentals: 8 points of direction, grip fighting, grip placement, breaking posture, all that sort of stuff. And then it's like, these are the first throws you do. And then it's, you learn some singular throws, and then you learn how to piece them together, and then you do this, and then you go to the next section, you move on, and it's like, and then you do X, Y, Z, and you can get your yellow belt and your orange belt and progress your way up. And then it's like, when I got my black belt, it was like a full day grading where all that. And then it's just like, I came to jiu-jitsu and I'm like, so what do I need to get a blue belt? And you're like, you'll know.
It's like, well, but I don't know.
I'm like, but I don't know. I'm like, teach me stuff. They're like, you know, you just got to show up. I'm like, and learn what?
Yeah.
Like, it was just, and it varies between each gym what someone considers like the fundamentals.
Right.
I mean, because it's like we can look at like, I guess, like the base positions where you would say, oh, okay, cool. It's like, you got to understand full guard, half guard, mounts. Why am I getting stuck? Turtle, side control. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's like, but within that, it's like, oh, you got to understand those positions. So I guess you got to understand the control from there. Now we got to teach you the escapes. And what escapes do we teach you? Well, there's thousands. Everyone's got their own preference.
Yeah.
And then how do we teach you the submission set? What are the most important submissions for that person to learn?
Right.
It's like the stairway to progression. And I feel this is why like jiu-jitsu looks so daunting to someone that has no experience to grappling.
Yeah.
Because there's no real like clear road.
Right.
It's not like I do X, I get Y.
Yeah.
It's like, we're going to just expose you to a lot of stuff, and it's kind of going to look like a jumbled alphabet for the next 12 months.
Maybe longer.
Maybe longer. Yeah, maybe longer. And it's like the most common thing is like when like the most common question like I get asked by someone who's just starting, and they're like, how long did it take for this to click? And I'm like, I mean, I'll be honest, I still get confused now.
Yeah.
I'm like, you've just got to be, it's just going to put you in a perpetual state of uncomfortability and growth. I'm not even sure that's a word. Is it? Can we get a Google check? Siri?
I wish the camera had a Siri in it.
That'd be perfect.
Be like someone we're talking to at least.
If I make words up, do I sound smarter?
A little bit.
Perfect.
As long as people look them up. If they don't bite on the word, that if it's real or not, then it doesn't count.
Oh, okay. Damn it.
So here's my thoughts on this, because this is a good thing. Or this is a good thing to kind of talk about.
Oh, I got the end of the coffee. Oh, French press.
Water.
No,
Water's so good. Yeah, you got the...
I got the mud.
Yeah. Okay, fundamentals in jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. Fundamentals of what? Because there's like fundamentals of arm locks. There's fundamentals of escapes. Mm-hmm. There's fundamentals of passing. Like people say, oh, just teach me the fundamentals. Well, it's like the fundamentals of what? Because because of the way jiu-jitsu builds on systems.
Yeah.
You got to pick something you kind of are interested in, and then you study it, you know? And I think that's the hard thing for people to wrap their minds around in the beginning. So it's like just giving people some options early on, I think, is the important thing, you know? And then I think it's usually around where blue belt starts to click in. They're like, oh, I can specialize in something.
Yeah.
And then they can dive deeper. And then they just think it's
I
like...
wouldn't say a blue belt's a specialist in anything.
But that's where they start to scratch the surface of specialization, you know? Really what it's going to be is that now they have like a system of 3 moves for to do something, you know, when they get there, or understand like 3 transitions around a move. But really, that's just the start of everything that they need to go through in fundamentals again to build like a dynamic system of fundamentals. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's why it's a process in jiu-jitsu, and that's why there's more gray area with it too, you know? And I think really the honesty, if I'm being totally honest, most of the time people's progression in jiu-jitsu isn't that consistent, is because they're not consistent. And like, I think it's really great when you find people that are like willing to make the sacrifice to really dive in and invest in what it is to be like good at jiu-jitsu, but like finding that time where you're really going to invest in and make the effort to like, you know, go in deep and learn how it works. It's a big commitment, you know? But you see a lot of people get hot and cold with it, and then their progression's not consistent, basically, you know? It's that they spend more time at belts, all that sort of stuff. So I think that's why jiu-jitsu also can be more gray sometimes, you know?
So what would you say is, so you just talked about like the fundamentals of what? Like the fundamentals of which position? Like with that many options from each position, would you say to someone that's just starting out?
Yeah.
Would it just be better for them to, you know, write down those positions that we get into and just have one thing you can do from there? And just kind of limit their exposure to the options within each position to at least give them like something to focus on.
Right.
Would you say that's better, or giving them multiple options from the one position?
So it's like you kind of want to do both, because you want to scratch the surface for them, or at least plant the seed that it is it's a dynamic way of escaping. We don't want it to be too linear with the way that you're thinking and like your approach of how you're trying to get out of positions.
Yeah.
So I'll use an example. I have a student right now I do private lessons with, and this person has all these flow charts, right? So they come in the morning, they have their flow charts, and they just pull out the flow chart of what they're working on, and they're like, hey, Justin, I know nothing from turtle. Can you show me more about turtle? And I'm like, and it's almost like checking me too. And I'm just like, I'm like, yeah, of course, let's do some more stuff on turtle. But then they're like, and like, I'm really having them categorize their flow charts more. And they're just like, oh, well, my moves from turtle is going to the back. I'm like, well, that's not really a move from turtle. That's a transition. That's something else. You know, it's like, you want to have some submissions from turtle. You know what I mean? Just not transitions to bring you back to side control and back. Because it's like you want to be able to attack from there. And then there's also escapes. So these are all like other things you got to kind of, and then you got to look at top and bottom, right? That's the other thing too. So like, here's what I'm finding with beginners when it really comes to fundamentals. Let them really understand what dominant positions are. Just black and white. This is where I can escape from, or this is where I need to try to escape. This is where I can attack. Then neutral positions. Closed guard's great example of neutral position, right? Like, because I can open your guard and attack on top, and then the person on bottom obviously can sweep and submit you. So it's like you got to get used to the dynamics of both of those positions, right? Yeah. So I think just getting people to wrap their mind around that is a big part of it. And then here's the thing I feel about escapes. I feel like most people just think about escaping positions. They don't spend enough time escaping submissions. So it's like you're talking about fundamentals. Do you know a fundamental escape to get out of an armbar? That's something you need to work on. Yeah. Do you know a fundamental escape to get out of, you know, like, or just like general defense of how to block chokes? Yeah. If you don't know that, you got to figure it out. You know what I mean? So it's like, and like some of that stuff, it's not as like clear cut. Like this is a move to get out of a choke. It's just having the awareness to block them. You know what I mean? I might differ on that one a little bit. Yeah. What do you got?
I would say that, yeah, it's good to understand the escape, like the escape from a submission. But in my head, like I always think of my escapes from a submission as my absolute last line of defense. And my focus is, it's like I'll spend less time focusing on my escapes from a submission and focus on what mistakes I made that put me there. because if I can clean those up, then I don't have to worry about escaping an armbar.
Right.
Because I'm not there.
Right.
It's like I'm mitigating that transition beforehand.
I would separate those two. So for me, that would be defense.
Yeah.
And then the escape is the action of getting out of the submission. So what you're talking about, submission defense a little bit. Like, I want to make sure I have this like wall of defense that's impenetrable. You're never going to get my arm.
Yeah, it's like it's a hierarchy. It's just like this defense comes here, and then as we crack through the barriers and get back, my escape from that submission is just like, oh well, I really fucked up.
Yeah.
Now I got to make something happen.
I want it to be like, if I get put in a submission, I have no fear of it because I know how to navigate my way through it. So like for me, part of like the way that I needed to grow in jiu-jitsu was like playing closer to the line of almost getting tapped. So I'd give up a lot of submissions.
I've gone to sleep a few times doing that.
You know, we have a nice video about that actually.
We do. Just like, yeah, I got this. No, that's pretty tight.
You know what I mean though? So like sometimes you got to put yourself in it just to see if you know how to get out.
Yeah.
And like why am I getting put in this? And like it's something I'm actually preaching more and more with my guys is for them to get more comfortable just being in the submission itself, because especially like you want to grow in jiu-jitsu, and this is like, you know, like you want to be getting better in the gym every day. I think what a lot of people do is they put up boundaries on areas they won't explore in their jiu-jitsu. You see this a lot from upper belts that deadlock all the time. So it's like, yeah, I'm going to go have a hard sparring with another black belt, but we spend the entire time in reverse de la Hiva. You know what I mean? No one gets a guard pass, and we're just sitting there where we're like button heads, and I like maybe free my knee. I get a couple like long step attempts or something like that. I'm getting like some good attempts to like
not even enough to score an advantage.
No, not even.
You just look at that. Like how many black belt black belt jiu-jitsu at like a world championship level is one of the most boring things I have ever watched.
100%. But the problem is because we're not willing to open up. We're putting boundaries on our game that we're not willing to explore with our sparring partners. So it's like...
Well, to be fair, the margin for error is also a lot smaller.
It is,
so
but...
I can understand why they play it safe.
Yeah, and competition's one thing, but in the gym's completely different, you know? And like, I feel like that's kind of what we're on is like, if I'm in the gym, how I train in the gym is really important. Like you hear from the top level guys all the time. They tap all the time in practice. That doesn't mean they're not like machine gunning submissions outside of that when it's like when they're working offense. But it's that getting ready to scramble under any conditions. Yeah. So it becomes less chaotic in a sense. You know what I mean? It's like if I just if I allow the scramble to happen, but I'm so ready to beat you in the scramble because I have more experience in those positions, I'll always end up with the upper hand. So with that comes, I need to put myself in more risking positions. Like I'm going to let you get an armbar and I'm going to let you extend my arm. So I have to work my hitchhiker escapes. You know what I mean? And then getting comfortable in that space of escaping, you know what I mean? And now I have awareness there. Or I'm going to roll with this guy and I know he's got a great triangle, so I know that triangle's coming. And I'm even going to dare putting myself in it so I can work that escape. I'm not saying this is something you should do every time you roll, you know what I mean? But you got to do it, you know what I mean? Because it's like, if I never work my escapes, if I never work my triangle escapes, my omoplata escapes, all that stuff, when it comes to the time where I really need it, it won't be there. Yeah. Because I'm not comfortable there, and then I'm gonna panic, and then I'm gonna get tapped when it really matters. You know.
That was an interesting point you said with it's like with especially a lot of higher belts on the mat, and you see them when they comes to sparring class. There's a lot of deadlock. It's like how much do you think that is like unwillingness to get into situations where you're uncomfortable, which forces you to grow and work on new things, and how much of it is, I guess, like I get a little bit of ego where it's just like, especially in the higher belts on the mat, say you got like 60 people in your gym and there's, you know, you're like one of 3 black belts. It's like, you know, you just don't want to be seen getting tapped all the time. You're like, oh, is this guy really a black belt? He's getting tapped. I thought black belts were like Superman.
Right.
You know?
But then I think you're right. I think it's 100% ego. Yeah. And I also think it's like, is that creating like a healthy team atmosphere? Yeah. Because like I don't want my students to view me as like a superhero that can't get tapped and stuff like that.
Because it's impossible.
Yeah. Because then it's putting unrealistic expectations on me. I'm not going to perform the way I need to, and then when I do err, and I don't know how to handle it again, I'm not gonna look good how I act. You know what I mean?
The best learning scenarios I've ever been in jiu-jitsu is when I was basically getting the shit kicked out of me. Right. You know, like it's the most I've ever learned. It's like someone new had come into the gym and they'd just be there for a week and they just had this system that I'd never had experience to, and it's just like they're just throwing up submissions everywhere. I remember there was one, it was like demoralizing the first time where I sat down and I'm like, I just got tapped like, I don't know, like 8 times in 5 minutes. I'm like, I didn't even think that was possible.
Right.
Because previously, before that, it's like, because I understood everyone that was around me. I knew their games, they knew mine. So I was just like, it's like I was on the other end of that. So then it's like you had to sit there on the corner of the mat, put the ego aside and be like, no, this is actually a great opportunity to grow. I'm like, I'm going to grab this guy as much as possible. I'm going to see how that works. I'm going to take that exposure. I don't care if I'm tapping. I'll tap 35 times in a lesson as long as I'm gaining a little bit more knowledge with every experience and with every role.
Right. 100%. And like, again, these are things I think like taught over time. And like, if you're a white or blue belt and you're listening, like, if you're avoiding people during rounds, those are the first people you should be grabbing to roll with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's so many times I think early on for me in jiu-jitsu where, I started to get good enough where I wasn't getting tapped all the time. And so I wanted to keep that feeling of like, I was doing good, but really I was avoiding that there's still people in the room better than me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so like, I would like do a hard round or something. I'm like, oh, I want someone easy now. So the next round's easier. Like that's, you're missing the point 100%.
No, you just got to push through it.
Yeah. Just push through it. Go with the guy that
Make
smashes
yourself
you.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Growth is on the other side of uncomfortable.
Yeah. And still to this day, like if somebody comes in my gym,
sorry guys, I'm just gonna get naked.
If somebody comes into my gym and like I feel uncomfortable around them, that's the first person I want to roll with. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, this person's really good. I have to grab them. You know what I mean? And if they catch me, that's great, because those training partners are rare after a long time. You know what I mean? You've been training for a long time too, Luke, and you know, like sometimes you have these long stints in the gym where no one's pushing you, and then all of a sudden the guys show up to do.
Well, I mean, like, you just got to find ways for the people around you to push you. Like, if that is the case, like if you're in there for long enough, and it's, you know, you find that it's just like, if I bring my A game, like no one's pushing me on my A game. So then I just got to sit back and go, well, what's something I suck at? Because it doesn't matter how good you are at one part of jiu-jitsu, there's definitely going to be another area where you're complete trash.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, for me, it's just, my aim in jiu-jitsu is to never be on my back. It's mostly just because, like all the MMA fights and things, it's like, I just made a decision maybe like 3 years ago that all my jiu-jitsu was going to be top. Yeah. So it's like, even when I get to my back, everything is aimed at getting back to top position. Yeah. Which for self-defense and MMA, it's perfect. Good jiu-jitsu there. But it's like, if I'm in a position where it's like the people around me can't challenge and push me on that plan, then I need to sit there and go, well, then I need to put myself in a position where I'm not as good. Which for me, if we're in the gi, is trying to play some form of standing guard, or it's like have them passing my guard while they're standing with me flailing in the air, probably like this.
I like your ribs.
Yeah, it's literally, if you watch me play open guard, it's a little bit of this, a little bit of this. It's about it, you know. But it's like it's like I have to put myself there because they will push me, and it'll push me to develop another area of my jiu-jitsu that I guess have previously neglected or haven't put as much emphasis on.
Yeah, it's kind of like what we were talking about before. It's like putting yourself in the submission. I can put myself in a guard I'm not good at playing. You know, it's or like, I'm going to let you sweep me so I'm aware of where I'm going to land next time you sweep me there. And this is just building awareness in the position. So it's like, now when you hit that same sweep on me, I have something waiting for you on the other side because you've done it to me enough times. So now I've had exposure to the position, so it's becoming predictable now, you know? Not to say you just want to like let your training partners do whatever they want to you. You know what I mean? But it's like, this is again just how you build awareness in positions, you know? Yeah. All right. 3 most important things for a beginner to focus on if they want to grow on the mats. We'll start with jiu-jitsu, and then we're going to do judo after.
They're kind of the same.
Yeah. Even better.
3 most important things that you want to focus on. 1, listen. God, I can't say that enough. And not just like
listen to who.
Listen to your coach, and especially the coaches on the mat, and really take in what they say, because don't ever be in a point ever. Oh my God, where your coach recommends something to you or tries to explain something and then go, but I watched this on insert anything. I watched this on a Gordon Ryan instructional or this or a Danaher or this or that. It's just like, man, it's like this person has your best interests at heart. They see you every day. They're not a person on a video screen. They see you every day. They understand how you move and they are trying to help you the best way possible. So God damn it, listen to your coaches. Second one, be willing to fail. Like, be willing to make so many mistakes, and be okay with it and understand it's part of the process. Like, I've been doing jiu-jitsu now, what was it, like, I'm going to say like 7 years.
Yep.
Now I still make mistakes every session.
Yep.
It's great.
Yep.
Like, I actually got that from when I was an apprentice, like doing my trade, just for work. Like, my tradesman always used to say that no matter what went wrong, everything was my fault. And I remember when I was a first year apprentice, I hit up a thing, why is everything always my fault? And he goes, how do you learn? And I'm like, from your mistakes. He goes, good. So everything is your fault. And it's like, and that's true. That's how you learn. You make a mistake, you learn from it. You get feedback, you move forwards. You make less mistakes next time. Or you make different mistakes and then you learn from them. So yeah.
That's a great one. You got a third one? No pressure.
Oh, yeah. Learn how to tie your belt properly. Fuck. There's nothing, I don't know. This might just be my OCD.
I think this is an ongoing joke with us for like 5 years at
Jesus.
least. People not knowing how to tie their belts.
It might just be my OCD, but it's like if you pass the wrong one over when you do that final knot, you just look like an absolute knob with your belt going up your chest and hanging between your legs. Like, it should be horizontal and look crisp. I don't know. That's just a pet peeve. I'm just like, especially when I see colored belts do it. I'm like, man, you've been doing this how long? You can't tie your belt?
Yep. There's so many different styles now for people to tie their belt and stuff. It's like a whole thing.
No, there's two. There's two ways you tie your belt. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah, there's the fancy way where you get the really lovely reef knot, which has the where you pass it through, and it's the one that you see in photos. And then there's the standard reef knot, which comes undone all the time.
I love the standard. It's what I learned first.
We actually used to use that in judo.
Yeah.
So this was a tip for when you're tired as hell in a judo match. You would loosen your belt so it came off.
Yeah, people do it in jiu-jitsu too.
Yeah.
It's because especially like off the start and you scramble off to the sides or whatever, you kind of fall out of bounds and you stand up, your belt falls off.
Yeah.
Gives you time to like look over to your coach, look at the scoreboard.
Like, judo's 5 minutes of straight alactic explosion.
Yeah.
Like, if you're having a hard grip fight and consistent throwing attempts, it's maximal effort consistency. So you take that rest break. You stand off the ground, and I mean, some people really took the piss. They'd be like, the referee would be like, okay, does this, which means tie your belt.
Yeah.
And they'd take their belt off, they'd put it on the floor, they'd undo their pants, they'd tie their pants. It's like watching your grandma like pour a cup of tea. It's just slow.
In jiu-jitsu, you can put your hands on the referee and he has to tie your belt for you.
See, that's ridiculous. That's just like a goddamn zombie. Like, man, tie your own belt. You're a grown-ass man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, something about composure in the sport of jiu-jitsu.
I tell you what, anyone that does that, I guarantee their mum ties their shoes too. Like, fuck that guy.
Oh, that's great. So no difference for the judo athletes? You think the same kind? It's all mindset stuff. You think?
Yeah,
thing?
I think mindset is definitely the biggest thing when it comes to progression, because it's how you're going to handle training. It's like there's no specific. I can't tell you specific drills or specific techniques that you should focus on, because just like judo or jiu-jitsu, it's like that's going to depend on A, what you're interested in, B, your body type, and I guess like C, your athletic ability.
Yeah.
So it's like those things are out of my control, or it's somewhat out of your control too. The things that you can control is how you view training and how you, I guess, like mentally and emotionally approach it. They're the things that will help you with progression in the long term. Consistency, listen, be willing to fail. Simple.
Yeah. Like the first one you touched on too is like listening to your coach is something else that I think is super important. And this is something I don't see it so much for my guys, but I've seen it in other gyms I've been to before, which is you teach something in class, and then you separate people to start the drills, and then it's usually like a blue or purple belt goes and then tries to switch what you just taught. You know what I mean? And they're like, Justin does it this way, but I'm going to show you my way. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's such a frustrating thing, especially like we talked about like building fundamentals for your students.
It's a great way to confuse the shit out of anyone.
Yeah, so it's like knowing your role, I think, is another important one too. Like, never forget to be a student, you know? And like, I get it too, like, especially around the time purple belt, you're usually like pretty excited to teach.
Yeah.
But like, you also don't want to like undermine your coach at the same time, you know?
Well, no, I've had that reminder before, less from the point of like coaching other people, but more about being stubborn on what I wanted to do that session. Like, say I've had like, it's like the coach shows me, it's usually been at times where like I go to class and someone new is teaching, and say it's just like teaching, maybe they're doing worm guard or something, or like something spider guard, lasso, I don't know, something that I'll just never do. And it's like, so I'll go through it, but I'll tweak a bit that makes it relevant to me. And I've had to pull myself aside like a couple of times and be like, although I don't want to do this, I need to just do what the class is doing for the same. And I'm like, I will get my opportunity to do whatever I like when it comes to rolling.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You and I have also talked about this. It's just like, kind of like giving the upper belts time to do what they need to do as well, you know? And a lot of that is sparring time. So it's like when the new white belts run up and grab you and be like, can you roll with me now? Even though you just drilled with me for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, you're still trying to prioritize your own training. Especially like somebody like Luke, who's a brown belt, like, brown belts, like, at least for me, was like an interesting rank because it was very transitional, because it's like you're almost transitioning to the point where it's like, now you're going to be a black belt, and black belt in jiu-jitsu automatically takes this kind of like coaching instructor role, if you like it or not. You know what I mean? It's just part of the package. So it's like,
it's hard to be selfish with your own training as a black belt on the mat when there aren't like 50 other black belts.
Yeah, and it's especially weird at brown belt, because if you almost think about it, brown belt's the time you almost need to be the most selfish, because you're almost there. Yeah. You're like, you're within like a year or two of being a black belt. And so you need to prioritize what you need to do as far as like refinement goes. Yeah, to cross, it's like almost like crossing the finish line in a sense, you know? Like,
no, I think it's crossing the start line.
Threshold. Yeah, something like that. It's like
it's just finishing a level and entering a new race.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like, but it's such a like special moment. Yeah. It's like you want to do everything you can to kind of prepare for that transition, you know, because it's a big moment, you know.
That's another difference between judo and jiu-jitsu is I would say judo starts at black belt.
I feel jiu-jitsu is the same though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, you guys still have like, you know, you can still have the world championships for the world championship blue belt, purple belt, the whole way up. Mate, no one's any good in a judo competition until they hit their black belt. There's a reason there are only black belts at a tournament.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's like that is like black belt is the bare minimum to be able to compete internationally. Even nationally in most countries. Right. To be any good.
It's that's true. That does make sense. Yeah, because it's like, I don't think I realized too until I like competed as a black belt for the first time, like how hard I worked to get to that point to just compete as a black belt. But I'd already been competing for like 10 years by that point. You know? It was a long time, you know? And then I finally get there and I'm like, I don't know how many years of this I have left, you know? Yeah. Like, I think I had like 2 years where I did like a couple tournaments of black belt and that was it. And then I kind of felt like I had my run, you know?
God damn, I'm going to be a master's before I'd be able to do that.
Yeah, man. It's crazy, huh? Yeah. You can still compete adult. You can always go down.
Yeah, I can. You can.
Masters is crazy too, because you show up to Masters.
Oh, yeah. Like, 30's not that old. You know, like, can we just calm down for a moment? It's like, I'm going to be 30 this year. And they're going to be like...
Can we use a different word that's not Masters?
Yeah, I'm just, you know, distinguished.
Yeah, distinguished division.
Yeah. Distinguished 1, distinguished 2, salt and pepper 3.
Yeah, I wonder if I think I'm a senior now. I don't know. Because I
calm down with the
Masters
seniors.
1, Master. I don't know if there's a Masters 2.
Did you get a 15% discount when you ride the bus too?
I hope so. And I'm not even 40 yet. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
To be fair though, there's a difference between regular age and grappling age.
That's true too.
Like, man, I might be 29. My body's like a solid grappling 60. Like,
Nothing but rust.
yeah, it's like a 1982 Daihatsu that's rolling down the road, like rust, it's squeaking, oil leaking out the engine. And the person behind the wheel still wants to drive it with their foot to floor with a nitrous button on ready on standby. You know?
I want to see this car.
Yeah. Oh man, she goes.
Oh, that's awesome. So I had some somewhat serious questions to ask you. Well, not so serious, but you know what I mean. Some stuff I definitely don't want to skip over.
Okay.
I want to talk about online coaching because it's like combat sports especially are making a big transition right now where there's this option for like people, there's so many resources for people to learn online.
Yeah.
So there's like instructional sets, online coaching, things like this, like podcasts. There's just so many more resources people have access to than ever before. Like, cause like we were talking about it earlier, like when I came up watching Jiu-Jitsu, I had to get VHS tapes.
Yeah.
You know, like that was serious. Like DVDs and VHS tapes were like what was available to learn from. And now it's like you go on YouTube and it's endless. You know what I mean? You can learn from everyone. It's all there. As someone that's looking, like you're at this point now where you're really transitioning and trying to move a lot of what you create online. What are the benefits that brings to a student that's looking, that's maybe new starting out? What are they benefiting from by buying an online course?
What are they benefiting from? Well, the first thing that you just said there, it's like the availability of it now. So potentially maybe you're somewhere, you live in, like I'm from Australia. So we got a lot of places in Australia that are, you know, there might be 2,000 people in a town. It's in the middle of nowhere. And say to get to a jiu-jitsu club, or maybe it has a jiu-jitsu club, and the coach is a blue belt because that's the highest ranked person in the jiu-jitsu club because there's just such a limited amount of people. So something where like the internet where you could potentially learn from someone that has things that you just wouldn't be exposed to. It's like that's where the value is. But it doesn't matter how much value that you can watch, it then comes down to what you do with it. So I can watch 45 different instructionals, but if I don't get in there and do the reps and put that tutorial into practice, then I don't know, might as well be watching Netflix.
Right.
So although there is value there in looking at instructionals, I think where a lot of instructionals need to where instructionals can get better is by adding the step-by-step process that the person needs to do. So it's like rather than just like sitting down and watching a 2-hour tape on everything to know about one position, it's like, why not give the person short micro doses of information where it's just like, this is this position, this is how it works with these 3 other things, and this is the process that you need to go and learn and practice them. Now test it. Now do this. So it's like, that's where like, I guess like the online space for martial arts needs to replicate what happens in the gym a little bit more. Because when we have someone in class, we teach them a set of techniques and then we show them how to work them or show them how to practice them. And then we give them a pathway to progress and then use it. I feel like a lot of jiu-jitsu tutorial, especially jiu-jitsu tutorials at the moment, it's like big information dump. And then they're like, see ya. And then they grab their bag and they walk out.
Yep.
So it's like, here's all this information. And you're like, cool. What do I do now?
Yeah, and there's something especially too about like jiu-jitsu community where they collect instructional sets.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't know any other sport where you just like have more hours of drills than you could ever do in like years just collected. And half the people haven't even watched all of it. You know what I mean? But they want to have these big collections.
Yeah.
But they never practice them.
Yeah, dude. How many guys do you know with like? Someone actually gave me access to a file. I want to say is they Dropboxed me something, and the file in Dropbox was like, I think it was like 11 gigabytes. No, that sounds too small. Like, anyway,
let's say terabyte.
I mean that's not going too far, but it was a massive file. And when I tried to download it, basically it was just all their and this was a blue belt. They gave this to me. He's like, oh yeah, I'll give you my instructional like folder.
Yeah.
Right, and he gave it to me, and I looked at it, and there were, no joke, there were 110 instructionals in it, and there was like every Danaher instructional, every Gordon Ryan one, every this, every that, and I'm like, I looked at it, and I'm like, man, that's just information overload. Like, I looked at it and I watched maybe one or two.
Right.
And then it's like, I only watched parts of it. And then I was like, you know what? I'm like, I got like 30 minutes into one. I'm like, that's enough for the next month for me to work on.
Yeah.
I'm like, because it's going to take me a lot of drilling. It's going to take me a lot of like trial and error on the mat with training partners to get proficient in that. It's like, why would I try and overload myself with something more?
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. It's like, I mean, like, no offense, I'm like, that's where I feel like it gets, the guys creating these instructionals should probably get a little bit more business savvy, because if you can make an instructional into a road of progression, you take something that's a one-off purchase and turn it into this is a 3-month program for you to do. And in 3 months' time, so rather than 3 months' time, you're going to receive this outcome, which is, this is how you're going to understand what's in my tutorial, rather than just being a 2-hour clip of everything I know about something. I'm going to show you how to make it better and better and better along this amount of time. It could be however much time it is. And now it's like, that's providing the value or more value to the person on the other end and the customer.
Right.
So it's not just information, it's a path to progression. You're
Right.
handing them an outcome. That's why we do martial arts. We want to get better at something.
Yeah. And it's almost kind of like if I gave a 5-year-old kid a gallon of ice cream, he's going to eat that whole thing by himself, you know what I mean? And not even think twice about it, until he's sick. It's opposed to like giving him a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's kind of what you want. You just want you want someone that's going to like take you through the process of actually learning. And like, for me, like I've had a couple students that I've coached online, and being able to just like kind of slow feed them exactly what they need and be like, just work on this for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. It's not 25 moves.
No.
It's 3 moves that you really need to work on, and you're going to film it and you're going to send it back to me. And then we're going to make sure it's right. And then we add more, and then we progress.
Yeah.
But it's like, I think, again, like people wanting to digest all this information at once, and they think they're going to have like the golden ticket, and then all of a sudden everything's solved. And I'm like, if you guys are watching this and you're guilty of this, I want to ask you, is like, did you sit there and watch a 5-hour DVD set? Did it really make your jiu-jitsu better?
You killed time.
Or did it, like, I mean, you got exposed to a lot of stuff, which is a part of jiu-jitsu too. We want to expose ourselves to what's available. But did you actually take the time to sit there and drill it and then go back and watch it again and make sure you had the steps right and then do it again? And it's like that sort of like refinement, I think, is almost getting lost in our generation of jiu-jitsu, where they're not taking the time to really refine their movement and stuff. But I think you really hit kind of the nail on the head too, of like the people that learn the most from this. Because like, it's the people that don't have the resources around them for what they're trying to learn. And it's really kind of a unique thing. Like sometimes you really find a coach you identify with, and like that's your coach. Like they speak your language, they have your style that you're looking for, all that stuff. And that's a fantastic thing. Like when you find that coach, but sometimes they're not close to you at all.
Exactly.
Like, and if I could find a way to at least supplement my training and get time with that coach, I'm going to take it. You know what I mean? What a great opportunity for me to have like a really high level coach that I normally wouldn't have time with, that now I have access to. Yeah. And like,
you might have space.
Yeah.
You might be like, oh, we got some mats in our garage, which is how a lot of people started learning jiu-jitsu on the VHS tapes.
Yep, absolutely.
But what did they do? They'd watch that was actually, it was almost better then, because what happened is you'd be like, you'd get a VHS tape. I'm just pretending I'm not that old. But you get the VHS tape.
Gotta rub it in.
And then you're like, you put it in and you watch that thing. I guarantee they watched that thing 100 times, and then they jumped on the mats with their friends or their brother or whoever the hell it was, their sister's uncle, and then they drilled the shit out of everything that was on that VHS. And you know what? They didn't move on to the next thing until they found another VHS.
So it's like, you gotta wait. You gotta wait for like more series to come out and stuff like that. I remember I would watch stuff at home and then have to drive to the gym and hope I remembered it.
Yeah.
There wasn't you didn't have a smartphone that you could turn and look at.
Writing
This is turning
notes.
into a back of my day thing real quick.
Back in my day.
But like,
go on, tell me about the dinosaurs.
And I'll tell you what I walk away with that like now people don't have is that attention to detail and the memory and building like a strong memory around kind of like learning the moves on the mat and stuff like that. Because I can still do that. I can like watch something at home and then go to the gym later and I'll remember it, you know? And still as a black belt, like I still use those resources. Like we're talking about what's available to us, like I still learn from top level coaches all the time, and it's not always as simple as details to techniques. It's maybe sometimes how they're explaining something, or them, like how they're delivering their message. There's just so much to learn from so many people. Like I can't forget to be a student either, you know. And I could imagine if I didn't have those online resources, it would be a lot harder for me to still sometimes find my motivation and inspiration to keep teaching and keep doing what I'm doing. I think it's a great tool, you know. It's getting hotter in here, huh?
Yeah. I mean, it was like an igloo when we walked in.
Bali's got 2 temperatures.
Yeah, it's like 40 degrees.
Icebox.
Yeah, 30 degrees outside and air conditioning set to 14 indoors. And that's that changing, it's that contrast of temperature that just gets you. But that was interesting what you said before, like, here's, 3 things to work on, and now get them right for 2 weeks. Because I think one thing that, and I've been guilty of this myself too, when I do programming, is as coaches, you really tend to overestimate the amount of information that someone needs. Or the variety of information. It's like, it'd be like if you went to a class and the coach was just like, right, we're gonna do an armbar, and I want you to do 3 reps, and then all of a sudden he's like, right, now we're gonna do this guard, now we're gonna do that, and it's like they're just doing this spatter approach where like, here's everything.
Right.
And when you do everything, it's almost the same as doing nothing.
You're right.
Because there's so much variety, so there's a limited amount of repetition, but there's also the loss of efficiency through changing your thought process. So it's just like there's a lot loss in efficiency by trying to do too many tasks at once.
Right.
Because everyone thinks it's like, right, if I've got 100% energy or 100% brain capacity and I want to do one thing, it's 100%. And now I do 2, it's 50% each. But there's not. It's like 40, there's like 45%, and then there's a 10% loss in change. And then it goes, there's actually, I can't remember what it is, but I read a brilliant study where they broke that down.
Yeah.
And it's like, as you add more than 4 things, and it's like, you think 25% of my energy on each thing. It's like, no, it's like 10% of your energy, and then you've got a 60% loss of change.
Right.
Which is just like a great way that I look at like my training now, is like when I focus on like 1 or 2 things. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's like, I'll double down on that for a while. And when I feel confident with it, then I'll just do enough to maintain it and move on to the next part.
Right. I experienced this like firsthand once when it became really clear to me. We had a great black belt stop on my gym in California, right? Fantastic jiu-jitsu. He showed us so much, no one remembered a thing.
Yeah.
And he would come back and do it again. He would show 10, 12, 15 techniques sometimes when he'd come visit. Yeah. And you would want everyone to do a couple, and then he moved on. But what he was really doing was working on his own stuff and just showing it to us.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to teach us the techniques.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get people like that, like not trying to attack that guy by any means, but like at that moment that was like selfish drills for him, so he could like get a bigger picture of the stuff he already knew and like kind of regurgitate it out.
Well, sometimes it becomes, I don't know, it's like I generally don't like seminars just because sometimes it just become a highlight reel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like people go, they're like, oh, I got to bring my A game. It's like, you just need to make sure that every person leaves that room knowing one more thing than when they walked in. That's it.
Right.
That's all. That's the only goal every time you walk in to coach a group of people or coach one person. I need to make sure that person completely understands one more step. Now they've got progressed. I don't want to give them the option of 45 different steps that don't help them, and then they leave there and they're like brain spaghetti, and they like spend the next 3 weeks trying to digest it. Just make them better.
Yeah.
1-2 steps at a time. I guarantee every person leaving that like seminar or leaving that class, if they feel like they were given the opportunity to improve and stay dedicated on one thing, they will be back. Absolutely. Now they've seen the progression and now they want the next step.
Right. Yeah. What was I was going to piggyback something off this. So again, I think people will also spend a lot of money on like online DVD sets. So there's like these massive amounts of DVD sets, and they'll spend a lot of money on a seminar, but then like there's the new thing with jiu-jitsu now is the online coaching.
Yeah.
And it's like, even when someone comes to me in a class like and asks me a question, I also have like 10, 15 other people that I'm trying to get the techniques right. Like, you don't have my full attention. Maybe you get me for a private lesson. Yes, you have my full attention.
Yeah.
But like when you do remote coaching, you're basically getting a lot of private time with the coach where they have no distractions, you know? So it's like, and also I'm sitting there and I'll be like watching tape of someone and I can like really see clearly what they need to work on. And the nice thing too is I'm not invested in anyone else in that room other than that person.
Yeah.
And that's something that's really unique too. So now I can go in and be like, hey, you know, this is what I'm seeing in your gym. And I can give you a really honest look from the outside of what's going on here and like how we're going to make you better. And like, I don't have to worry about like, I can give you every note you could about beating that other guy in your gym if we need to, because I'm not invested in that person. Whereas your coach has an attachment to that person.
Oh, they're helping the room.
Yeah. So it's just like, there's something really special about like doing the online coaching because it's like really you got a coach in your pocket.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's going to help you with any questions that you have. And it's someone that you're like really looking, you've really went out of your way to seek their help.
Yeah.
And it's just so much more bang for your buck. You know what I mean?
That's what I mean. It's like, it's interesting you say that because it's like when you're a good coach and you value your time and you value like what you offer people, there's always going to be that person that's just like, oh, it's expensive. And my favorite thing to break down for them is like, they go, oh, so I'm like, okay, so say a PT, I'll make it easy. It's like, so say a PT is $100 an hour.
Yeah.
And you go to, and that's one person just for you dedicated 60 minutes. You're the only person they're focusing on. And you're like, oh, but a class is like $20. And you're like, yeah, but there's also 20 people in that class. So if we break that down, 20 people divided by one coach, you are getting 3 minutes of that coach's time for $20.
Yeah.
It's like, how fucking good does $100 for 60 look now?
Yeah, right.
You know?
100%. Hey, so tell people about day one.
Day one.
Yeah.
Day one is my little brainchild that is coming to fruition. Like, I've been involved in martial arts for 21 years now. I have a lot of knowledge there that I want to start offering to people. And it's going to be a platform where people can access, like I said, for those people that don't have access to maybe quality coaching or a gym, or maybe they're doing one martial arts and they want to dabble in another one as well. So it's going to be a platform for people to learn multiple styles of martial arts, and more importantly, kind of step by step. So less 2.5 hour videos and more like micro doses of information for people to really progress and like learn this, now learn this, now learn this. All right. And just like break it down step by step. And we're going to start with a fundamentals boxing course. And then from there, we're going to bridge out and create some jiu-jitsu content for maybe a fundamental syllabus for there, just like some basic options for people to get started. Judo, wrestling, Muay Thai, MMA. I'd really love for there to be something out there where people can have access to all of that in the one spot, rather than going like, I'm going to go to Grappler's Guide and get all my jiu-jitsu here, and then I've got to go over to this platform to learn something about boxing, and then this one to do that, and all of a sudden someone's got, you know, like 45 online memberships,
right,
trying to learn from everyone. It's like, why not just bring everything together in the one place? So yeah, just make it nice and efficient for people.
Nice. Tell us more about your boxing course you're working on.
So the boxing course I've been working on it's broken down into 4 blocks, and it's basically how I work with people that have never done boxing before, and it follows a very similar format to what would happen if I had someone come in just for private lessons. There are specific skills that you would teach them first. So there is a 70-page ebook that has. It's a 70-page ebook that has a lot of picture diagrams and text to explain specific positions about footwork, how to get into your stance, all the punches, head movement, defense, and it all builds block by block. And then alongside of that, there's some lessons. So basically what you get is me on camera, and I take the time to really break down a lesson and keep it on a nice, like a singular theme for you to actually get the time to progress and learn. So I'll explain what the technique is and how and why we do a drill the way it does. I have someone on screen where I can correct common mistakes, and then it is your turn to get some reps in. So you follow along and you do it for a specific round time, and then we move on to the next drill. So we're just making sure that we take the time rather than just being like an at-home jump around in your room stupid hit workout. I wanted to create something where people could focus on their fundamentals and have a path for progression. It's like, learn this, good. Do you feel comfortable with that? Great. Now learn this.
Absolutely. And like something that you're doing that I think is really cool too is you have like the kind of platform where like if they're at home, they're going to get to learn it, you know, like they have that time where it's like a little bit longer and you're going to explain the techniques, but then you also have the other resources with it that are like short from when you're in the gym.
Yeah.
Because I can't tell you how many times I've been like, hey, check out this move. And I show someone the move on my phone. I'm like, well, wait, let me find where they're actually going to do the move. Yeah. Now I got to, like, especially in jiu-jitsu, man, they can be so long-winded. The guy's talking for like 10 minutes before he even does like a full rep of the move.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like you lose people really quick. But if I want to try this really quick in the gym and I just need to see it, you just have it ready. It's there, you know? And especially with striking, like boxing, we're going to come in. It's like, oh, I really understood what he said earlier, but I just needed like a quick look at it again. And I think that's great. And then also you doing part of the workout with them too. So it's like, if you are the sort of person where it's like, maybe you're just in the gym and you got a bag and you're just like starting to get into the idea of doing martial arts. Now you feel like you're not as alone because there's someone along doing it with you. Yeah. And I think that's really cool. And it's your coach and it's the person you're talking to. And
that's just what I mean. It just allows for a little bit more personality and interaction as well.
Yeah, for sure.
There's also nothing, if you've ever watched instructionals, they're very difficult to watch when it's just one person talking to a camera and I'm like, hi, today I'm going to explain how to do some half guard. First, you're going to grab the wrist, 3 fingers back from the knuckles. And by the time they've gotten to do anything, you've fucking fell asleep.
Yep.
You know, so just like having something that's just a little bit more informative, a few people on screen, so it's like that interaction is taking place. And it's like, I really wanted, I took a look at a lot of other programs that are out there. Like I went and bought some and I made notes. I took notes on everything. And I tried to look at it from a perspective. It's like, if I had never done this before, how would I feel about watching this?
Right.
Am I learning something? Like, because I look at it and go, I understand what this person's doing because it's like I've done it for 6-7 years.
Right.
But how does someone feel when you have no idea what you're doing? And I'm like, okay, they brushed over this a little bit too much.
Right.
I mean, like it's a little hard to follow because the person's half doing it and then half talking and then half doing it again and then half talking. Like if I'm looking at the screen, I'm trying to follow. I'm like, do I do it for a second and then I stand and listen or this and that? It's like, no, it's like it needs to be like explanation, corrections, repetition. And then when it's repetition, you just need to have something to reference to make sure that you're doing it right.
Right.
You know, something you can be like, oh, I'm unsure again. You just pick up, look at the screen and be like, that's what it looks like.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. So you're based in Bali. Talk about training in Bali a little bit, just so if people have like, they want to come out here, they want to take a class from you. Where can they find you? All that sort of stuff, you know?
Okay, so if you based in Bali, I have 2 gyms. I mean, they're not mine, but I wish I had 2 gyms. I should have done. That'd be a lot of work.
Yeah.
No, there's 2 places that you can find me training at. The first one is Rituals Jiu Jitsu. Woo! Yay! Woo! It's with this guy.
Yep.
So you'll find me. It's like I'm a little bit injured at the moment, but usually you will find me there like 4 or 5 days a week on the mats doing jiu-jitsu. And the other place you will find me is Soma Fight Club, which is conveniently about 400 meters down the road.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to have like a super high level kickboxing gym that close by, you know?
Yeah, so Soma is predominantly a kickboxing and a boxing gym, with all striking classes. And then just 400 meters down the road, I go and get my jiu-jitsu done. So
yeah, it's pretty cool to see like a really nice martial arts community forming in Bali too, you know, and like people wanting to come out with that like training mindset and making it like a destination place to come and do martial arts.
It's becoming more of a hub, and it'll only get bigger.
Yeah.
Especially now that with Soma putting on like regular fight nights on the island, that's something that Bali hasn't really had before. Is like actual professional, the opportunity to have like professional and amateur fights that are sanctioned and like done under the organizations. And I feel like for a long time that's why people went to Thailand to train.
Right.
Because, you know, if you wanted to have a Muay Thai fight on the weekend against a taxi driver, you could.
We laugh because we've both seen it firsthand for sure.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that. But I mean, like it's like you would go there and there's always the opportunity, like having a fight was an opportunity. So people would go there for longer periods of time knowing that they could train for a fight.
Right.
So with Bali coming to the point now with like Soma putting on the shows and more places willing to put on those fight shows, the more opportunities that they create for that, the more people that are interested in combat sports and training will come here. And then once you get the fighters to come here, then you get the halo effect of everyone else around it.
Yeah, now, that's huge.
Now everyone wants to come and train with their fighters. Like people went to Thailand to just casually train because they would be around fighters and they could go watch some fights, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, and
I think it's only building.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think something that's really incredible that has happened like just about a month ago was we had our first ever sanctioned MMA fights.
Yeah, that was great.
And that was such a cool thing to be a part of. It was like a really old school boxing stadium that we were in. It was just such a cool vibe. The fights were great. The people there were great. It was a great show.
Yeah.
And just more of that's in the pipeline and coming. And so, and that's like during COVID, you know what I mean? No. And it was still just like a fantastic show.
During COVID, 800 people in the stands.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing.
It's just crazy. It's like the borders won't even open yet.
Yeah, our borders just reopened here in Bali. We're finding again like tourists coming back in, and we just know the level here is just going to jump. Yeah. Come, we miss you guys. You know?
Come hang out.
Yeah. All right, one last thing that is like important that I like always want to do on each podcast is it's got to be about the rituals. Pre-fight rituals when you're competing in MMA, Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, any of that. Anything you do before your fight, either the day of or day before, anything that really helped you like get your head on straight. Or any training rituals.
Okay, before the fight, I would, and this actually starts in training in the camp. So I would, this worked for me, is I would, especially the day of a fight, I had told myself that I couldn't think about the fight until I got to the stadium and out in the back, because I had to get really good at separating my personal life from my training life, because that for me was like, all right, personal and then work, because when you're fighting professionally, it's like training is work. I love it, but it's work. So I wouldn't take shit from either side of the line into the other one. There had to be a separation there. Right. Because otherwise what happens is the day of the fight, I wake up and I'm doing nothing but thinking about the fight. Now, I wake up at 9 a.m. I'm probably not going to fight until 9 p.m. That's 12 hours of my brain working, thinking about the fight, going over every scenario, getting there. Then the nerves start to kick in. By the time it gets to fight, I'm exhausted. And I've made that mistake. I've felt flat. It's like I'm walking to the cage and I'm like, and it's because I obsessed over it the entire day. So I remember it was after that I made the decision that I was just like, right, what happens in the gym? Say I had a bad session in the gym, like previously, I would spend an extra 30 minutes in the gym after training. I'd think about what I needed to, and then the moment I crossed that threshold and walked outside, bang, couldn't pick it up until I got back the next day. Had to make that separation. And that made fighting a lot easier, because it's like the day of the weigh-in, or like the day of the fight, you wake up, you're happy, you're having breakfast, you're hanging out with your friends, your family, going for a walk, just being normal. And then it's just like you walk into the stadium and you just have switch click and you're like, right, it's time to go to work.
Right.
And it just sets that, and you're like, now it's about work. Now I can start, it's not about having fun. Everything personal just switches off. Right. It's like for me, then when I get to the stadium, there's no more family, there's no more friends. It's just me, it's my team, it's my coaches. We're there to do a job. I'm there to do what I do best, and I need to be in that headspace to do it. Right. So headphones go in, and yeah.
What kind of music do you like? Do you like something that's going to bring you down, or you like something that's going to pump you up?
Man, I'd say it changes. It depends. It's like every fight camp, it's been different when it gets to the night. It's like I'm the worst for picking a walkout song.
Yeah.
I literally do the day of the fight. The day of the fight, because it's just like, I want that song to make me, I don't know. It's like, I want that, that song's going to get me amped up, and it depends. Like, it's different songs every time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I remember over the years, even like I would have training partners, and I'd just be curious. I'm like, what are you listening to? Like, we'd be the competition day, and then like I remember going over to a friend of mine who's a great competitor, and I put in his headphones, and he's listening to the waves. He's listening to ocean sounds, and he's like, I just want to stay really calm up until the time I go up, and then I let the adrenaline dump, and then I'm in it. Yeah. So like everyone's got their own thing. Sometimes people like, I have friends that all they do is listen to metal. And they're just sitting there listening to metal for like hours before. They're just like, just pumped, so ready to go.
I can do a bit of that. I don't know. I've got a playlist on my phone, on my Spotify, that's just called Feel This. And it's a very weird playlist because it's the most eclectic bunch of songs you've ever heard. Like, it'll switch from just like it'll switch from like R&B to like I guess like heavy metal screamo, post-hardcore, to then something different, to then something trancey, to then this.
Yeah.
But it's like it's actually a collection of songs that and it's like I only save songs where it's like the first time I hear it, I have a strong emotional reaction to, and I save it because I know that song like means something to me, and I put it in that playlist. So it's like whenever it's like I need to like feel, it's like put that playlist on. I guarantee there's a song in there that'll help.
Interesting. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's like you can kind of go through everything and feel it out and see what you need that day.
Yeah. Because it's like when you get that, as men, we don't communicate very well.
Right.
Yeah, so guys out there, no, women, you won't understand this because I'm not going to say that. Actually, let's just move on. So the men out there, you'll understand this. Like some days you're just like, I'm just a little bit pissed off and aggravated for no reason. I have no idea why. It's like, on those days, I put my Feel This playlist on and then just do some movement. Like I might just do 10 rounds of shadow boxing. Get the bag, go for a run. That's not unlikely. It's probably shadow boxing, but with that playlist on. Yeah. And then I'll go through that spectrum of emotions, and it'll actually just help me process and understand exactly what's going on in my head. By the time I finish that 30-minute session, I'm like, someone cut me off in traffic. Yeah. No, it's usually more substantial than that. But,
I gotcha.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Again, so like, how can people get in touch with you? What platforms are best for people to find you?
The easiest platform to find me on is Instagram. Yay.
And what's your handle?
My handle is LukeHoward_MMA.
And where can they find out about Day One? Just through your Instagram, or you got a website or anything?
Just through the Instagram. Yeah. Like the courses are being built at the moment. The websites, I'm not very tech savvy, so I'm having someone else do that. So the websites are under construction for it. So yeah, Instagram is the best place to keep in contact with me, follow along. There's also like plenty of like boxing tips that come up there, and when I can do it, jiu-jitsu tips, and just kind of like sharing as much kind of like knowledge as I can in an entertaining way.
Right on. Yeah. Hey, Luke, thanks for coming on. I hope you enjoyed it.
Man, thank you so much.
Yeah. Good work.
I think that's it. Yeah, that's us.